Hello and welcome to this video on the 1 minute sky swap. My name's Colin Barton. I'm a busy estate agent and property photographer working in Oxfordshire, England. I've developed the 1 minute sky swap to produce a natural looking finish, and it pays particular attention to the recovery of twigs, leaves, TV aerials, boiler vents, plant stems and all those components that very often get lost in sky swaps. It's fast at just under a minute, it's natural, it works every time and it's free. Now first I'll run through some images to show you how it'll look along the way. So if we go into here, this is the base image that we're going to start with. The next image is that same image given a bump in Lightroom, that's this one. The next one is the sky that we're going to blend it with. This is in Photoshop. This is the finished product that gets put back into Lightroom for saving. And then this is the comparison, so you can see where it's gone from and to. You can use any sky that you like. You can use a straight blue sky, you can use a white fluffy cloud sky, you can use like a mackerel sky or a sort of wispy type sky. Anything will do. The critical bit is that it brings out the detail, whether it's got white behind it or not. And the reason why other sky swaps fail is because they don't do the separation properly within the twigs and etc. So you can use one of these, that's my sort of go-to sky. It's a wispy sky at the bottom and a sheep's back or a mackerel sky on the top, depending on how you like to refer to it. Just jump across into Lightroom for a minute. So these 5 images are a bracket of 5. They're taken on my Canon 5D Mark III with a 17 tilt shift lens on. And we're going to use this middle image, which is ISO 100 f8 at 100th of a second. I've made a copy of it in readiness, so it's this one here in red. So we're going to jump to that one, and I'll go through a real-time demonstration now so you can see it live. We'll bring a stopwatch up, just one off the internet, nothing fancy, and we'll start the stopwatch, and here we go. Right, so put the bump in like that, Alt-PE, open and throw over into Photoshop. Open up Photoshop. Here we go. Alt-SC, do a colour selection. L, Alt, and just take out the bits that we don't want, which is all the dotted lines below the ridge line of the roof, basically. Keep it simple because we don't want blue appearing on the house, on the garage door and all those bits. And then the rest is on a Photoshop action. That's the action there. Saving it back into Lightroom now. Just come back into Lightroom. Takes a little while sometimes, doesn't it? Here we go. Control E, job's done. Bring the stopwatch up and stop. We're on what, 46 seconds. Nice and fast, and it's that sort of time every time. Let's get rid of that stopwatch, and I'll show you the component parts that make it up. So now we're back in Lightroom. We'll take our starting image and apply the preset to it, which is a light bump. It's actually a variant on Nathan Cool's light bump that you can see in his YouTube videos. So it ups the exposure to 0.43, sends the contrast to +12. The highlights are dropped right down, and this is really important. The highlights go down to -100. If you take the highlights high, it puts all the flare in around the twigs. If you take it low, it brings all that detail back. So you put it low. Shadows up to 64. White's up to +26, black's down to -47, a little bit of clarity and a tiny bit of dehaze in there. The next thing is to get the sharpening up, so sharpening's up to 78 here. The detail goes quite high at 70, the masking up at 62. If you want to see what you're masking, press the Alt key and click on the slider, and then you can see the detail here. So you just want it where the detail really kicks in, which is about there. So okay, we're at 73 there, it doesn't particularly matter. Chromatic aberration is removed, and enable the lens profile correction. They don't have one for a 17 tilt shift, so I've got the 1740 on instead. Last thing to do is to click the verticals. So once you've done that, then we throw that over into Photoshop. A couple of ways to do that: either right click, edit in Adobe Photoshop, or alternatively Alt-E or Alt-PE, which I just do out of force of habit. So there we go. So let's go and have a look in Photoshop. Right, so that's it come in. The next thing that we need to do, or rather this bit is still manual if you like. So we go into Alt-S, so it's select, and then you want C for color range. you want the fuzziness slider over here down at 33. If you take it off to the right, you'll get absolutely every bit of detail that you don't want in there. If you take it too low, you'll lose so much detail even the sky won't be in it. But at 33, it's just about perfect for a sky swap. So click OK on that and you'll get your marching ant selection. The bits that you don't want down here, you don't want the garage, you don't want the windows, don't want the boiler door, don't want the soffits. So to take those away, we get a polygonal lasso and take it to negative. So L for lasso, Alt key, and then click round these bits below the ridge line that you don't want in the image, and that'll stop bits of the blue substitute sky going on the garage door, etc. So we just click around those. The next thing that it does is it goes into the automated action from here, and the automated action goes select, modify, expand by 3 pixels. That makes the mask nice and tight. It does lose all the twig detail, but we put that back in later. Next thing we want to do is make a mask. So you can either come down to mask over here, click Alt and click the mask, and you'll get the mask up that way. The alternative way to do it, I'll just Control Z that out for a moment. The alternative way is to go Alt L for layers, M for mask, and D for hide, and that'll do you the same thing. Next thing to do is to copy that twice. Control J once, twice, and then you want a new layer on top that you're going to introduce the new sky into. So it's Shift Control N for the new layer, enter, Control V to find the new sky. Now I took this on an iPhone, so it's not even the same shape, and the pixel density is actually way out, but we'll use it for this example. And then drag it up to the right size, resize it, and place it where you want it. So we'll have it there for the sake of argument. It can go there, that'll do. Right, next thing to do is to take this layer and drop it down between the first and second layers, or the bottom layer and the next one, middle layer. Get the layer mask from the bottom layer and put it to the sky layer. Now then you need to invert that layer mask. Control I. Then the layer mask above it, Control I on that as well. What you've now got, and I'll explain this, I'll take all of them out. Right, so the top one only controls the house and all the detail in the bottom of the image, plus the thicker bits of the tree. The next one controls the old sky. I'll take this out. So this controls the old sky on the opacity slider, right down to nothing, right up to full. The next one controls the new sky. Same routine on the opacity slider, right up to full, right down to nothing. You can have as much or as little of it as you want. And the bottom one provides all the bits that get lost along the way. So we just put all of them back on, go to the opacity slider on the old sky and start sliding out the old sky down to about 50. We take it down there. Okay, we're down at 46, that's about right. The next thing that happens is you go back into the sky layer, you get an eraser, E, it's set at 10% flow, opacity 100%, and take a couple of swipes just across there. And that does two things. One is it helps to make the horizon lighter, which is what happens in nature, and secondly it just makes the blending a little bit easier. Next thing to do is to flatten them. Shift Control E, flatten the layers, Control S to save it back into Lightroom. There it comes back into Lightroom. Wait for me, here we go. If you think that your sky isn't quite blue enough, you can always go to the color sliders and pump a bit more blue in it. So if we come down to here, go to saturation, go to blues, bump up the blues. Right, so this is the section where we show you how to automate it in Photoshop. The first thing we've done is we've loaded the image across from Lightroom. We need to advance it to the point where it's ready to have the action applied to it. So on the manual part, I'll just go through that again. So we had select, color range, fuzziness at 33, click OK, and then we went L for lasso, and we went Alt for negative, and then we just made a selection to get rid of the marching ants on the part of the image where we don't want any sky appearing, i.e. on the house, the drive, the grass, etc. Right, so that's that done. The next thing that we need to do is open the sky window that we want to use. So the replacement sky, we need that open and it copied before we put the action into use. So I'm just going to go File, Open, go to my pictures and find the working sky here. This is 03 working sky, the one we used before. Control A to select all of it, Control C to copy. Go back into the working image, and from here it's from this point forward that we need to do the recording. Now, in order to record an action, you need to get the window up and get the actions window up, which is this one here. Alternatively, you can find it by clicking Alt F9. Once you've got the action window up, go to the square with the cross in it, and you've got Create New Action. Click on that. It wants you to give it a name. We call it Sky Swap. And we can allocate it to a function key. We're going to allocate it to F11. And from the moment we press record, every action until we press stop will be recorded for use in the Photoshop action later. So let's go record now. And the first step is to go select, modify, expand by 3 pixels and click OK. That makes the mask a bit tighter. Then we want to make a mask of that. So if we go click on the Add Layer Mask icon at the bottom, press Alt on our keyboard, and it produces a Hide All Selection Layer Mask. We want 2 more copies of that, so we use Control J, so Control J once, Control J twice to get those fresh layers up. And now we want a blank layer going in at the top that we can introduce our fluffy cloud sky into. Shift Control N for Create New Layer. Asks us to give it a name, wants to call it Layer 1, that's fine. And press Enter and in it goes. Next thing to do is to go Control V for Paste, which drops our fluffy cloud sky into the new layer. Control T to resize it. And just expand it up there and grab this corner and expand it out to there, and that's fine, and we're going to go with that and hit enter. That's that done. Next thing we do is grab this layer, so click on the layer and drag it down between the bottom layer and the middle layer, and it'll pop in there. Go to the bottom layer, click on the layer mask, drag it up to the cloud layer. Now what you want to do is click on the layer mask on that cloud layer and invert it. Control I to invert it. Click on the layer mask above and Control I to invert that. Now go to the opacity slider above them and just drop that down from 100 down to 46 there. And that's the majority of the sky swap done. Then what we need to do is click on the replacement sky, get an eraser up. To do that you press E as a shortcut, and I've got this brush set at 1400. It's a soft brush with 100% opacity and a flow rate of 10%, and we want a couple of sweeps of that. So click on the mouse and sweep across in one action, one smooth action, and then click the other side and sweep across again, and that gives us a second swipe. And that is it pretty much done. The only other thing to do is to do Shift, Control and E to flatten the layer, and it's at this point that we want to stop recording. So we'll press the stop recording button on the actions one there. Now if I undo all the things that I did within the action, which is about 14 stops on Control Z, to there, we're back at the point where we didn't have the action. If I now press F11, it'll do the action for me. Done. And it's as simple as that. So every time that you want to use it, you can change the sky that you want to use. So if we want to, let's say we want to get rid of this, we go into this fluffy cloud sky and get rid of it. Put gone. If we now go File, Open, When we pick a different sky, we'll pick this slightly mackerel-y sky and do Control A to select it and Control C to copy it. Now go back into our working image, take it back by 14 clips to where we started. There. Now if I do it, it'll put the other sky in. So if I go F11, I've got the different sky. So you just pick and choose whichever sky you want to use, drop them in, then use the action, and you can use that all day long. Simple. Yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope these tips in this video have been some practical benefit to you. If you've got any questions or want to go through it with me one-to-one, then you can email me at centurionphotography.oxon@gmail.com. I will be doing some future videos. They'll be centered around flambient blending, window pulls, gear, shot lists, shooting for Rightmove and Zoopla, or I guess if you're in the USA that's for MLS. The differences between working in the UK and working in the States, there are some subtle differences in it that you need to get into your head and work around. How to fix dark adjoining rooms, perhaps video on white balance, flash diffusers, bounce light, presets in Lightroom and actions in Photoshop, how to deal with clients, that'd be a sensible one to do. The conflict between the photographer's way of thinking and the estate agent's way of thinking, that's actually quite strong, and you need to get that one right if you're going to expand your business. And perhaps setting up some practice edit material as well, so look out for those. We'll try and get those done during the course of this break. Thanks for watching, and see you soon. Bye.